Welcome everybody to the June Covenant Day presentation for 2021. I'm Paul Stokes from Western Australia, and the theme of this presentation is Prayer Life in the Domestic Church. I'll be presenting the first part of the session, and my son Paul will then address the topic in light of his personal experiences of growing up with the home shrine. The future of the church relies on the energetic revival of faith. And the essential task of the church is to teach people how to pray and to hand on the lamp of faith and the oil of prayer from one generation to the next. And this starts within the home, the domestic church. The task within the home is to safeguard the divine life given to us at baptism, to grow in holiness and to pass on this divine light to others. It is within the prayer life we have in our homes, in whatever state of life we live in, that we come to believe in the love God has for us. So simply put, prayer in all its forms opens us to this path of love. What is prayer? Well, taken in the broader sense, it is the raising of the mind and heart to God. To pray is to enter into a personal dialogue with God. Through prayer, we foster a living contact with God and with each other. More than ever before, we have to see to it to create a sacred atmosphere in our homes, which speaks to us of the things of God. The signs and reminders of the living God are rapidly disappearing in the modern world. How do we learn to pray? We must practice prayer in order to understand it. We have to change from just saying daily prayers to living a prayerful life. In prayer, we should lead with the mouth, accompany with the heart, and follow with our lives. Fostering an attitude to prayer in the home. We often communicate the deepest meaning of religious practice in the first act of devotion that the children learn. The roots of the children's faith and their view of God takes hold in the attitudes of the home environment that surrounds them. Values such as love, trust, reverence, patience, forgiveness, honesty, care, all of these become part of a child's understanding long before they are initiated into the wider church community. And these values are communicated to the family members via our interaction with one another, and most often unconsciously by a gradual process of osmosis. The rituals and the customs we introduce within family life are all part of the religious experience, and it is through these that we communicate our view of God. Each morning, we welcome God into our day. We acknowledge God's presence in our lives. And at night, we thank God for our day and ask forgiveness for any missteps along the way. Religious rituals add to our celebrations of important moments of family life, such as receiving of the sacraments, birthdays, engagements, graduations, leaving home. These give us an opportunity to become aware of the presence of God and draw on the graces, the strength and peace that God freely gives us. They give us time and space from the ordinary busyness of life to reflect on what we value and treasure in each other. But it's not only on special occasions, but all aspects of life can be made holy. Work, school life, recreation, and these can be offered to the concerns of God. Cultivating a life of prayer within the family or an individual person happens in a unique way. The Lord speaks to us in a variety of ways, at work, through others, and at every moment. Yet, we simply cannot do without the silence of prolonged prayer which enables us to better perceive God's language, to interpret the real meaning of the inspiration we believe we have received, to calm our anxieties, and to see the whole of our existence afresh in his own light. Now, Father Kendick did not prescribe specific prayers. However, he made it very clear that cultivating a life of prayer requires time, effort, discipline, and deliberate action. It is important to secure definite times for prayer and to be faithful to it. Also, to have prayer breaks during the day when we can be more composed and maintain a humble attitude before God. Family prayer needs to fit into the rhythm of family life. It needs to occur when we are more open to God's love. It is a way of passing on the faith to our children in the sense of facilitating its expression and its growth. Moments of family prayer can be more powerful for evangelization than any catechism class or sermon. In the words of Pope Francis, we grow in faith inasmuch as we learn to pray, and the breath of faith is prayer. Prayer nourishes the flame of faith. More and more, the Church of the Home, the domestic church, remains the one place where children and young people can receive an authentic catechesis. This presupposes that we develop an instinct and sensibility on how we are to approach this with our children and adapt it to each child's openness and pattern of growth. For example, younger children will be more open to symbols, actions, and stories, while older children will respond more to testimonies. Our home shrine is for us a practical help in order that we can place ourselves in the presence of God, in the presence of Jesus and Mary. Here we come with all our needs and cares, our joys and disappointments, with all our abilities and inabilities, and discover more and more the God within each of us. In the covenant of love, we strive to do our part. Nothing without you, nothing without us. In the covenant of love, we sanctify ourselves for each other through our prayer. This comes from our longing to educate ourselves and our children, to create a religious atmosphere within the home as a barrier against the worldly culture. We often remind ourselves that when we made our consecration prayer in September 1981, we included our children in it. Even though they may now have left home, we still entrust them to our Blessed Mother and pray that she will do what we are no longer able to do. Our helplessness can become a motivation to continue living our covenant more faithfully and to work on our self-education more diligently. In the words of Father Kentenich, a sound and vigorous attachment to God is only possible and can only prosper to the extent that the soul prayerfully strives to grasp and know itself better and more deeply, and frees itself from all disordered affections. We need to sift through all that life throws at us and all that life tempts us with, and decide wisely what matters more and what matters less. What is contributing to our own and the greater good, and what is tending to pull us down from the best that we can be. Jesus warned us that where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Where does our treasure really lie? Our prayer life should change our lives. to pray is to struggle into the will of God. This involves a speaking to God and a listening to God, and it expresses the importance of the link between our prayer life and our everyday living. In order to discover the will of God in our lives requires receptive listening to the Word of God and the Church and faithful discernment. Our prayer life develops the spiritual sensitivity of reading the voice of God in our lives through all that happens, through people and circumstances. So in conclusion, we need to remember two key points with regard to prayer. Firstly, that our children and the people around us will listen more willingly if we live the faith that we proclaim than if we are mere teachers of the faith. As one person observed, the modern man listens more willingly to witnesses than to teachers, and if they listen to teachers, it is because they are witnesses. Secondly, the need to spend time to be in the presence of God. The saying, "Tell me who you spend time with, and I will tell you who you are," is true on the natural level, but also with respect to our encounter with God. We do not become who we hope to become. We become what we do. Thank you for your attention, and now I will pass over to Paul, who will present the second part.
Hello. I've been asked to share my experience of prayer in the family growing up, and Ida and Stephen are my parents, and I grew up with two brothers and a sister. We're part of a family that came to Schoenstatt when I was 2, so my whole childhood. Prayer in the family became particularly important when I was reflecting on how is my own family going to connect to God? How is God going to be part of our lives? And it was interesting that reflecting on what was important really brought home things that I'd taken for granted most of my childhood. They were just there, but I realised how meaningful and how important they were when I was looking at what I could pass on to my own kids. And a lot of this centred around the home shrine. So let's begin, and I'll share a few examples of what happened in our family when I was growing up. Night prayer was particularly memorable for me. It was a time when we'd come together just before bed. We would start with the sign of the cross, and then each person would be asked, what were you thankful for today? And then after that, what is one of your intentions for yourself or for others that you can share with God? And so we'd pray for those, and then we'd finish with our routine night prayer, which was a simple prayer, thanking God for family, for the day, and asking for protection over the night. It was a simple routine, but it was quite personal and engaging, so that we could share our life with God at the end of each day. And then we would rush off to bed and be tucked tightly in, and it was a really comfortable, secure time to end the day with. Another prayer routine we had was morning prayer, and we would often have a reading from a devotional or a song or a certain prayer would say, and this would change in different times. Mum would bring something that she'd found during the week and share it with us, and it was a prayer emphasising a certain aspect that was relevant to us now as a family. And so that would become a new part of our prayer routine for a while. And many of these things stay with me today, these prayers, that the ones that were my favourites. And the joy and the feeling that went with them was one of just a beautiful way to start the day, to greet God, and then enter into the day with enthusiasm and joy at all the things that it might bring. Another important aspect of prayer in the family was to do with grace before meals. And while these prayers were simple and often prayer poems, just to thank God for the meal, it really was thanking God generally and created this sense of thankfulness. And so these prayers would always connect with with our meals, but they would be extended, and spontaneous prayers would be included when it was a significant milestone. For instance, someone's birthday, prayers for the birthday boy or girl, or if it was a milestone in life, especially as we got older, we would thank God for the achievement of university degrees or other important things that happen in our life. So prayer and celebratory meals would always come together, and it would be important to mark the milestones of life. And hanging above the dining room table was a picture of Jesus in the Last Supper that would always be there. And then I noticed as I was growing up that my other aunties and uncles had the same image above their dining table, meaning that Jesus was always there with us as we celebrated life. I'd like to come back to the liturgical seasons and the home shrine. One of the significant memories of the home shrine was coming up to Christmas. Would start our Advent calendar, and it would be always excitement at opening each new day's drawer and finding out what was the little prayer and the job that was to be done that day, and would have an invitation to do something. And whether we did this particular thing or we found something else meaningful during the day, we would come to night prayer in the evenings, and we would bring our offering and say, this is what we did today. And then link that with preparing for Christmas by, one time we had a manger, and we would add a piece of straw to the manger so that we would be preparing a comfortable bed for Jesus to arrive at Christmas time. This made the season a real time of striving, and it made it very personal, so that we were really living Advent and really preparing for Christmas. And when Christmas finally came, it was something we'd really put effort into and was personally meaningful. Another point for the home shrine was the symbols. It was a very rich place where our memories collected over the years. There were different symbols that meant different things, and sometimes they were there because our parents had placed them, and they would become meaningful to us at different times as children. For instance, the Unity Cross, I think was quite important for me in my teenage years in starting to meet new challenges and trying to achieve certain goals in life, and then finding difficulties along the way. And the Unity Cross always was a reminder that I could offer my such strivings, offer my disappointments and my challenges to God, and knowing that life didn't have to always work out, but God was using these disappointments to refine me, to help me to grow, to become the person that He wanted me to be. The constant in the home shrine was the picture of the MTA, but the symbols surrounding the MTA would gradually grew as we matured. And as I got older, it became a place where it was full of meaning and full of memories and full of experiences. It was a place where I met God, and I connected with myself and shared my life with God. And in a more personal way, just by myself, as I got older, it became my special place rather than just the times when we met as a family for prayer. One particular symbol that was important, I remember, was when we prepared for the Father symbol being installed in the shrine, the WA shrine, Narmadale. And we prepared by reading from a book of reflections by Father Kentic on what did the Father's love mean for us. And we read a bit of that every day, and it really grew my knowledge and understanding of how God was a Father and loving us. And it was with great joy and excitement that when the symbol was installed in the shrine, we had our own small symbol to install in our home shrine. And it really was very meaningful that God was all loving, all knowing, and looking after us. The providence of the Father was really came personal during that time of striving and learning about the Father's love. So, as I said, the home shrine really always has been a really pivotal part of our family prayer. Even now when I visit Mum and Dad with my own family, we stop by the home shrine before we leave, and we pray for each other and offer our lives to God again. It still is it is really important for me, and a real place of feeling at home. My bedroom at home when I was living with mum and dad changed. I think had 3 different bedrooms, but the home shrine was a constant. It was always there, and I'd even say now it is my favourite place in the home, the place where I feel most meaning and connectedness and the love of God because of all those experiences over the years. So thank you, Mum and Dad, for all your efforts to build our family in a relationship with our God, and thank you everyone for listening.